Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Matt Lateplo, and on behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-host, Zacks Small Cap Research, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Kiromic BioPharma, Inc. Please note you can submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view the company's presentation deck, a fact sheet, as well as availability for one-on-one meetings on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome the next presenters. Brad Sorensen, CFA, Senior Equity Research Analyst with Zacks Small Cap Research, Brian Hungerford, CFO, Leonardo Mirandola, CSO and ICOO, and Pietro Bersani, CEO of Kiromic BioPharma, Inc., which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol KRBP. Welcome, Brad, Brian, Leonardo, and Pietro.
Thanks, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Pietro Bersani. I'm the CEO of Kiromic. Kiromic is an allogeneic gamma delta T-cell therapy company featuring unique proprietary end-to-end bioinformatics, AI targeting, and manufacturing technologies to treat solid cancer. Solid cancers, which unfortunately account for more than 90% of the entire population of malignancies. For your information, the global CAR T-cell therapy market is projected to be more than $33 billion by 2027. But the company, Kiromic, is right now at a very interesting inflection point. Why? Last year, we got the approval by the FDA to get our product candidate, delta cell, into the clinical trials. And so, as a result of that, we are now into the phase 1 clinical trial evaluating the safety and tolerability of delta cell infusion in combination with low-dose radiation in patients with stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer. Unfortunately, there are more than 2 million new diagnoses on an annual basis, as well as on a global basis. And for your information, for those of you who don't know these bad statistics, lung cancer is 3 times as deadly as ovarian and breast cancer. Now let's switch to the good news. We have an amazing treatment which so far is proving to do very well. It's an allogeneic treatment, which means that we extract gamma delta T cells from healthy donors, not from the patients. It's outpatient, which means basically there is no hospitalization for patients, and it's just 10 days long. What it means is that from the beginning of treatment until the very end, it just takes 10 days. First 2 days are about the administration of low-dose radiation. The third day is about the infusion, the first dose of delta cell. Then patient go through a 4-day break. And with respect to the final 3 days, it's about the third and fourth low-dose radiation. And on day 10th, it's about the second and last delta cell infusion. Done. So because delta cell is an open label, we are happy to report preliminary data from the first patient. And in fact, delta cell demonstrated progression-free survival after 8 weeks, and an exciting, very promising tumor reduction by 6.6%. Not to mention that it comes also with a 20% reduction in tumor lesions metabolism, which implies that we may expect a further reduction in tumor size going forward. The first patient continues to do very well. And as I said, we have seen a very interesting efficacy preliminary data. So based on this first patient, no toxicity, the patient is doing well, very promising early efficacy data with this significant progression-free survival. We already completed the treatment of patient number 2 and number 3. And we expect to be in a position to announce by the end of March, so this month, the early efficacy, early safety tolerability, as well as preliminary efficacy data by the end of the month. With respect to the clinical trials, in addition to the Beverly Hills Cancer Center, excuse me, we have now brought on board two additional prestigious clinical sites, and we plan to activate more as we broaden this clinical study and increase the enrollment. Finally, a few comments about our product platform. It's made up of, excuse me, three product candidates: DeltaCell, IsoCell, and ProCell, with up to 5 potential clinical trials, considering the mono as well as combination with low-dose radiation for IsoCell and ProCell. Of note, IsoCell targets a specific variant of a tumor mesothelin in ovarian, mesothelioma, and pancreatic cancer. With respect to ProCell, it targets the PD-L1 tumors. With respect to DeltaCell, if we get preliminary efficacy from the first patients, we plan to apply with the FDA for breakthrough therapy designation by this summer 2024. Now, let me underline just what we believe are the key values, the key elements of the Kiromic value proposition. As I said, we got a very favorable early safety, tolerability, as well as efficacy data. We got our Diamond AI platform, which is about the identification and validation of targets. Later, it will be used also in terms of patient as well as donors selection. The combination of these three product candidates will lower the cost while providing greater efficacy as well as improved access because of the features that I said. It's an off-the-shelf therapy, allowing for speed, convenience, and logistical easiness for patients because of its outpatients. And as I said, our pipeline targets 90% of entire population of malignancies. Finally, last but not least, we do have our state-of-the-art CNGP manufacturing down here in Houston. With that being said, I will turn over to Brad for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pietro. Yeah, there's many questions, and no, it's exciting to be able to be part of this. Thanks for having me. And yeah, so I think we want to back up and just take a bigger look first, and then we'll get into the lung cancer because that is very exciting, and I'd love to hear about that because I know there are many people suffering from that. So, the Diamond platform is an artificial intelligence system, which is what I understand. So, how did that come in a brief way? I'm sure it's a very complicated explanation, but how did that narrow it down to the three candidates and then specifically focusing on lung cancer? And how did that make it more efficient? And how will it be used in the future?
Well, before I turn over to Dr. Mirandola, who as a Chief Scientific Officer as well as Intensio is more into this. We are currently using the Diamond AI platform in terms of targeting the protein expression on the surface of tumor cells, which is giving us a lot of advantage. We have already collected more than 2 billion data into the platform. Going forward and deploying the data from a DeltaCell phase 1 clinical trial, it will be further empower the efficacy of the platform in terms of patient and donor selection. This is the way we want to look at this. So we are not there yet in terms full deployment of this fantastic tool which we have in house, but that's the path going forward that we're going to have. Dr. Miranda, would you like to add any further comments?
Yeah, so good. Very good question. I think one example was just given. How did we narrow it down to lung cancer, for example? And yeah, it looks like it's working. That was our prediction since the start. And what we're doing now is to collect data from our clinical trial. So patients treated with our own product and our own treatment schedule to determine the stratification and increase the rate of response. We're looking at several things: mutations, genome sequencing, and of course proteomic data. And once we collect all of these Diamond AI platform can increase its capacity in determining, selecting the best responders. That's a benefit for everybody, for us and for the patients, obviously. But the other thing is that the new products, which we expect to start testing in the clinic next year, and particularly the CAR product that's being optimized using this AI platform, which we think will increase the therapeutic efficacy and decreasing the toxicity, which are commonly seen in CAR T cell therapies or allogenic cell therapies in general. So that's another strength of our bioinformatic platform.
Great. And the Diamond platform that you guys use, is that proprietary in-house?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I understand AI is that the more data it gets, the more it learns, so it will continue to improve and make things more efficient. Is that I'm a novice AI guy, I will admit that, but that's the way I understand it. Is that the way that you guys look at it as well?
Yeah. Definitely, Brad. Yeah.
Great. So we'll get to the lung cancer. So the initial results are good, and I know that you don't have, at this stage, I know you don't have the full timeline. We can't go with that, but investors are always wondering how long is this going to take? So if you could just lay out some scenarios or what the way you're thinking about it. You mentioned like a breakthrough designation. How would that speed things up for investors that don't know? Just kind of get the timeline of this first treatment. And like I said, I know you can't give exact numbers. That's impossible, especially when you're dealing with the FDA. But if you can give an idea of what you're looking at, that would be greatly appreciated by investors.
Brad, I mean, this great for the thanks for the great question. So, the way that you may want to look at the regulatory process in order for a biotech company to get to the market is this: either you go through the typical phases, which is phase one, phase two, phase three, and at the end of that, BLA, which means the biological license application, which of course comes with a certain length of time, which is really unpredictable because we don't know, and just like any other biotech company may not know until they get to phase two, how many more patients will be required and expected by the FDA. That's the first avenue. The second avenue, which is the one that if we achieve preliminary efficacy result from the first series of patients, by end of the first semester, and therefore we would apply for the breakthrough therapy designation, it's much shorter. Why? Because it would be about phase one, a registration of phase two, and then directly into the BLA, so into the biological license application, which when received, they would grant the company access to the market. So it's difficult and it would be just a speculation to say, well, that could be this or that, because even when and if we'll get the breakthrough therapy designation, at some point we'll obviously receive feedback from FDA. 30, 40, 50, 60 more patients, it depends. I think we are very well positioned in that respect because, as I said in my preliminary remarks, not only we are working with two clinical sites, but there are more to come on the pipeline, which means that we'll be in a very good position in order to treat simultaneously more patients, potentially in different clinical sites. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. By the way, breakthrough therapy designation is not just the only potential advantage based on the efficacy results. There are other regulatory procedures or process actually, like orphan drug designation, seen as phase two, the latter which would further condense or shorten the timeline because it basically would be a combination of phase 2 and 3 in just the one study with a lower number of patients. So I think that if everyone is patient in the sense that having patience to wait for this summer, definitely more specific, response to this question or this kind of question will be made available. Certainly, we are, and we will continue to announce to the market what are the preliminary early safety, tolerability, and efficacy results from all the patients that we are treating. And that's the best way to give the investor community as well as the capital markets a sense of the company's execution and getting to a point where, based on the collective data from these first patient cohorts, we'll make a determination, like I said, whether or not to apply with FDA for a breakthrough therapy designation. I'm confident, I'm optimistic because the results so far from the first patient, very good, very, very solid. It's it's amazing that those efficacy metrics after just a few weeks. Let me tell you this, Brett. So we're excited. We are getting there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because I do deal with a lot of biotech companies, and those results are one of the reasons I want to be part of this because they are very impressive. And no, I understand, and that's why I wanted to get across to investors that sometimes biotech and clinical stage companies they can take a long time, but this company will have results coming out soon that you can watch out for and
Right.
pay attention to. And that's what we want to. But that leads into the next question, which is probably your least favorite question. It's we don't have an exact timeline. We understand that, but we need to be funded. So how is the funding going? Obviously, you'll need more funding. Clinical companies always do. What comments do you have on that aspect?
Look, I feel very comfortable in terms of capital access by the company. I think we've been proving since end of 2022 the fact that we have been constantly able to fund the company on a monthly basis through private investor, private placements. And what is absolutely amazing it is the long-term approach by these anchor investors, which is really looking at the science and not being so focused on the short-term financial metrics. So when a company like this can rely upon such a strong, effective, and safe support from such private investors until the company will be in a position coherently and accordingly with its pipeline to proceed for a potential public equity offering, that I think speaks volumes about my optimism about the financial needs and capital needs going forward by the company. We are and will continue to have access to this private investors' capital in order to make sure that we can continue to fund operations at least until the company will raise a substantial amount of money potentially from or through a public equity offering.
Right. Yeah, that's something that a lot of clinical stage companies don't have. So that's certainly an advantage is that kind of constant flow of funding in the early stages. So definitely a positive. I did want to circle back more to the clinical stage, the lung cancer treatments. So do you do your own manufacturing development of the substances, the drugs that you're testing? What does that look like if you do, or do you outsource it? What do you just explain that a little bit so investors know how it gets to the patient from your idea?
That's bread is part of the one of the main advantages or upsides from having a CGMP manufacturing facility, by the way, down here in Houston. So the reason is that we look. Let me rephrase. If we had not had such a manufacturing capability, I don't think the company this time would be able to get into or be into the clinical trial. Why? Because as a matter of fact, in the aftermath of the COVID era, with such tensions and challenges from the supply chain, and if we therefore had to rely upon the third parties, providers and vendors, we would not have been able to be where we are. So the CGMP manufacturing facility, which as a matter of fact gives the company a status of vertical integration facility, was key in order to get into the clinical trials at this time for Delta Cell, which means even more in practical terms that we are completely manufacturing in-house for complete vertical integration source the Delta Cell product that we are currently infusing in the patient phase 1 clinical trial. There is absolutely manufacturing capacity able for the company to continue to produce and expand the manufacturing of this product candidate for the next additional patients. And so we are very confident because we are as independent as possible from an operational point of view in order to make sure that we fit and that we continue to act consistent with a pipeline and timeline that we constantly confirm through SEC filings, as well as our corporate deck and all the investor conferences that we attend.
Yeah, that's excellent. Vertical integration is key to getting things to the market, to the testing, getting through the process in a big way. So I want to focus in on the lung cancer treatment really quick. For those of us that don't have doctorates, is there a way to easily explain? Like I was impressed, very impressed with the results. Why do you have such impressive initial results compared to, there's a lot of companies out there trying to do what you're doing and you have more impressive results than I've seen. Why is that the case? What do you think you're targeting that they aren't? What process do you have that they don't? What makes you better right now in the early stages at least?
Look, I mean, you understand that we necessarily to be a little bit stay high level in this respect. So, when a company has the secret sauce and a part of the secret sauce is to be able to expand the potency and reach these gamma delta T cells that we extract from healthy donors, so that once they get infused in the patients, they really they are proving. Let me say this: they are proving to be really effective in detect, attack, and potentially kill the tumor cells. Generally speaking, for a general audience, the way you may want to look at this low dose radiation, which is part of the treatment, right? As I said, delta cell infusion in combination with the dose radiation. You can imagine a dose radiation kind of beacon, flashing with lights and putting more visible the tumor as well as the TME, tumor microenvironment, so that after we infuse the delta cell in the body of patients, their duty, which is to detect and attack a tumor cells, is going to be easier because of this low dose radiation. This, kind of, in English terms, I'm not getting too technical in this respect, but I think the way you may want to look at this is really the unique and the manufacturing technology that the company has in this respect to get this performance results, if you want, from these gamma delta T cells. And the fact that, as I said, we are deploying AI. AI is going to be strategic, so much strategic everywhere, right? Every industry, every niche, more and more and more. So the fact that our three cornerstones in terms of AI utilization, which is once again target identification and validation, and then next one will be patient donor selection, it ultimately will make this process so incredibly efficient and effective, which means compressing the timing and being able to predict what will be the patients subject to, depending on a specific malignancy, that we know our therapy will be effective the most. So it discloses and opens the door to an amazing scenario where really I have never been more optimistic than now in terms of a potentially very successful war against this universal sadness, which is caused by tumors, solid tumors in particular.
Yeah, that's something that we as biotech people and finance people combined, you you can focus on the financial aspects and the potential that this is, I think, great. But you also focus on, and this is why I want to focus on the speed as well and the efficiency that we can get through this, because that's what I get frustrated with. There's people suffering from all these things that need the treatments as soon as possible. So being able to do that, that's key both for financial reasons but also for humanity reasons. That's what we want to get these treatments to people.
That's
Yeah,
our mission. Sorry,
yeah, no,
yeah.
definitely. And I could probably talk to you for an hour, but I do want to get to some investor questions that we have coming in that are on the line. So if anybody else has questions, you can add those now. I have a few right now. One question we have is they want to know, do you have any research partners or at all in house? And what does the competitive space look like for Delta Cell?
Look, as we published announced relatively long time ago, we have a sponsor research agreement with MD Anderson Cancer Center down here in Houston, which is basically the institution which is famous all over the world, where we got the in vivo efficacy study into the preclinical. In other words, we use mice in order to test in vivo what were already available to us in terms of data, the preclinical and the lab, the in vitro data, which were very good and promising. Then they got confirmation through this in vivo study with the MD Anderson Cancer Center. We have been using Charles River as for the study with respect to safety and tolerability. Again, excellent results. So that's why we were so confident. Although never say never, but we were and still are confident from a human testing point of view, and data once again are demonstrating that. So when it comes to agreement and research agreements and sponsor research agreements, we typically select the most prestigious and technologically advanced institutions which we can reach out to. And that's not going to change, of course, as soon as we progress. So you may want to expect something like this, which happened for Delta Cell, with respect to isocell Procell as well. We have recently, for instance, extended the sponsor research agreement with MD Anderson. So to be honest with you, Brad, we got a lot of excitement from partners as well, existing partners as well as potential partners, because they are seeing and they are now, testifying, they are experiencing, they are seeing the enormous the enormous results from a meaning point of view that we are getting. We need to build up the patient, right? It's a matter of adding statistical meaning to this patient. You cannot come to a conclusion and go back to the FDA after one patient, right? We need to have to treat a certain number of patients in order to put us in a position to make a determination whether or not we believe that we have solid results, solid efficacy results, solid enough in order to apply for that for the breakthrough therapy designation. And
Right.
even by the
And we are
way,
just about out of time. I do want you to just address the second part of that question really quick, the competitive space for that, just real quick.
the competitive space, well, look, there are known companies in the gamma delta T cell space. We use a different type of the gamma delta T cell, gamma delta 9 T cell versus the gamma delta T2, number 2, which comes with some specific advantages because some are from the tissues versus the blood. And look, this is a universe that you have opened up. So it's difficult, to condense something like this. But again, even when we look at these known companies in this space, We believe that none of them is able to have at the same time in-house what I just said, which is a proprietary, unique end-to-end bioinformatics, AI targeting, plus manufacturing technology to address solid tumors. So we are very excited, and we are sure about, very positive about our future.
Yeah, I can see why, and I can see why investors would be interested in this, and I'm glad we're getting the story out. And I do want to let investors know that, yeah, we're just about out of time. I want to thank everybody for coming. And if you have questions, further questions, like there are other client questions I'd love to be able to get to, we just don't have time. Please reach out to this company. They'll be happy to answer your questions because they do want to they're excited about their story, and they should be. And they want to let investors know what's going on there and bring people on board. So I appreciate everybody's time. And like I said, I'm excited about this company, and it was great to be able to learn more about the exciting stuff you guys have going on. You want to close with any quick comments?
I think we have summarized everything more important. So I would say the four competitive advantages, which I mentioned. I'm looking right now at our deck, which is, by the way, available which will be made available by OTC Markets. So superior specificity for multiple solid tumors. We have a superior efficacy from the gamma delta T cells. We are a vertical integration. I mentioned the CGMP manufacturing facility together with the quality control as well as the environmental monitoring labs, all in-house. And basically, it's about a lower cost and greater access through an outpatient treatment versus an inpatient treatment, which would come with a lower projected cost to the patient as well as a healthcare professional. So that's the main four competitive advantages that we do have.
Yep, I agree. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And like I said, contact the company with any questions you may have. Thank you very much.